Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Finlo Costain. Whistlebare Farm, nestled near the Cheviot Hills, produces yarn from Angora goats and Wensleydale sheep. Their fleeces are scoured, combed and worsted spun in Yorkshire, and the wool is sold as yarn for knitting and as finished products. I spoke to Dominic Elsworth, who farms at Whistlebare, and I started by asking him to explain what those fabulous wool processing terms actually mean.
Scouring simply means washing. Generally, you lose about 50% of the weight of a fleece in the scouring.
What is it you're losing? What do you lose in that process?
In the case of wool, you're losing a combination of lanolin, dust, vegetable matter. Angora goats, we produce mohair. They don't have lanolin, so you lose a lot less in the scouring. But yeah, it's principally lanolin, which then goes into that's recovered and goes into the cosmetics industry.
Yes.
Combing is very simply like combing your hair. It's making the fibers align parallel with one another.
Yeah.
And worsted spinning is what you do with fiber that has been combed to be straight. And that process means drawing the fiber out so that you have a thinner yarn and putting a twist into the yarn to hold it all together.
Thanks so much for that. So could you tell me a bit more about your business?
We have a farm, and that's where it all starts. We farm what would probably be called regeneratively these days. We have the whole farm's down to grass. It's all multi-species pastures, and most of the fields are divided up into agroforestry alleys. And the role of the goats and the sheep is to reprocess the crops that grow, be they the grass or leaves off the trees. We harvest from them fleece. That's our principal business. And we then have that processed in Yorkshire, where there's been a textiles industry since the Industrial Revolution. We bring that back to the farm, dye the vast majority of it, and then sell those yarns, principally as hand knitting yarns. We also have some made into products like hats, scarves, socks. We do those ourselves. Blankets we have woven in the Scottish borders, where again there's been a strong textiles industry since the Industrial Revolution.
Now, thinking more generally, we generate a lot of fleeces in the UK. So what happens to them?
The vast majority of fleece is collected by the British Wool Board. That's a farmer-owned cooperative. It has a legal monopoly on the collection and sale of wool in the UK. So it collects wool at depots around the country and grades it into different classes, and then arranges auctions, and you can go to an auction and buy a lot of wool. A lot is typically 8 tons or so. I believe the Wool Board does arrange some auctioning of smaller lots of circa a ton. Those lots will be bought by, say, carpet companies. A lot of British wool goes into carpets. It may be bought by weavers. So Cheviot goes into the Harris tweed industry. And then a considerable amount of British wool is exported to China, Lithuania, Poland, Italy. Italy would be for apparel, fabric manufacture, possibly upholstery, fabric manufacture. I expect with China it's going into carpets, and Poland and Lithuania, I don't know.
And do you know how much is exported?
Not off the top of my head.
But it's a lot.
It's a considerable amount, yes.
Yeah. And do you know why we don't use more of the wool that we produce ourselves?
I think it's simply a case of demand. We have a lot of sheep in the UK, so we produce a lot of wool, and there a lot of people wear synthetic clothes. A lot of people have synthetic carpets. Even if you go to farmer events, you will see many people wearing hats that are made of polyester, not from wool, wearing fleeces made from polyester, not from wool. So there is a huge opportunity, but there needs to be a marketing effort to change people's attitudes to wool.
When we spoke previously, you talked me through, the different prices that different types of wool could reach. Could you just talk me through that again now?
Yeah, so I think we need to talk globally, because there isn't really a market for merino wool in the UK, although a few people do have sheep producing merino wool. But there is a commodity market globally, and the finest quality merino wool is probably selling for £15 a kilo, whereas your average British wool may be selling at, say, £120 a kilo, with the best being Blueface Leicester or Wensleydale, and they'll be selling for between, say, £3.70 and £6 a kilo.
With merino wool being so much more valuable, why is it that we don't produce more of it ourselves for the global market?
That's a good question, and I think it goes back to the fact that the UK used to have an empire, and it developed wool production in Australia and New Zealand. They became very good at it. We could keep more merino sheep in the UK, but I think that would take an enormous change in mindset of British farmers. I can't see it happening unless there was a vast increase even in the price of merino wool.
Is that because there's a challenge in producing merino sheep, both for wool products and also for the meat trade?
Yes, there is. I think in the UK there is a buyers of fat lambs have an idea in their head of what they want, and that isn't going to be a merino.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now,
if the price of merino went up to...
You couldn't just start that sentence again for me, could you? Because I interrupted.
If the price of merino fleece went up to £50 a kilo or £100 a kilo, then you may see a lot more interest in the UK. There are a few people who are looking at introducing merino genetics into British breeds to improve wool quality. We're looking at that ourselves, using Wensleydales, Shetlands and Merinos in combination. I know some other people are looking at using Merinos with Romneys, and then using those genetics on British breeds to improve the wool quality of their offspring. Mm-hmm. So some people are starting to think about it, but I cannot see the merino having a big future in the UK unless prices were to change dramatically.
Now, Dominic, I've said in the past that for the fibre industry to thrive in the UK, we need better infrastructure to support it. And you've told me that you don't think that infrastructure is a problem for British wool products. So what does need to change for wool to become more valuable again here in the UK?
I think it's down to marketing. I think that you can offer something for sale, or you can market it. If you look at coffee, 20 years ago, a cup of coffee was 50p and not many people drank it. Now a cup of coffee is £3 or £3.50, and there's a coffee shop every 100 yards. That market has been developed by people who put money, time and effort into doing that. And that can be done with any product. There's a huge market to go at. Wool only occupies between 1.5% and 3% of the global textiles market, depending on which survey you look at. That means they're between 97 and 98.5% of the market to go at.
Do you think that there are ways of better integrating the wool and sheep meat trades in the UK?
There are two ways that that could be done. A lot of lamb's wool is not collected in the UK clip because the lambs are slaughtered before first shearing. So that wool goes off with the sheepskin and probably goes off to Turkey to be tanned and then goes into the fashion industry in one way or another. In some countries, sheep are shorn at the abattoir prior to slaughter, and that is something that could be done. In the UK, it would add another layer of processing, but clearly it can be done because in some places it is.
And that's important because the wool that comes from the lamb is better quality?
Absolutely. It's the best quality, whether it's a blackface or a merino. The best quality wool from that breed comes from the lamb, from the first shearing. And the other thing that could be done to better integrate meat and wool would be really taking us back to when wool was a much more important economic sector, hundreds of years ago, where most sheep were kept until they were aged, and the sheep meat that was generally eaten was mutton. Mutton isn't valuable now. Yet other than lamb's wool, the best fleece that you get from an animal is from a wether, and a wether can carry on producing excellent fleece for 4 or 5 years. So if you go back 300 years, most sheep meat was eaten as 3 to 5 year old mutton.
That was Dominic Elsworth from Whistlebare Farm. More news on our website, 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.